Good afternoon to all, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Make It Happen, brought to you by the Clover Imaging Group. My name is Tim Cahill. I'm the Inside Sales Manager here at Clover, and I'm going to be your host today. But before we get started, there are a few housekeeping notes that I'd like to quickly review. All of our attendees today are in listen-only mode, so if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Once a question is answered, the question and the respective answer will become visible to all audience members. If we are unable to answer your question live, we will follow up individually after this meeting via email to answer your question to the best of our ability. Also, this webinar is being recorded, so if you have a hard stop or if anyone in your organization is unable to attend today, we will provide you with the full presentation recording via email. And if you have missed any of our webinars, those recordings are all available to view at any time on the dashboard of the cloverimaging.com website. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenters. We have our Senior Vice President of Sales, Keith McCurley, and the Vice President of Sales, AJ Brazel. Thank you again for taking the time to be with us here today, and I will turn things over to AJ to get started.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate the intro, and I also want to just say I appreciate everybody else joining the call. I know we're up against the end of a month and the end of a quarter. I'm sure everybody is extremely busy, but appreciate everybody taking the time to join what I think is going to be a really good webinar. I might be biased, but it could very well be our best one yet, and something that we're both very excited about, as is the entire sales team over at Clover. So make it happen. We really want to focus on a couple of things today, helping our dealer community and our partners aggressively re-engage the market, successfully go out and capture new business to offset lost revenue due to setbacks caused by the coronavirus and COVID-19. And just maximize our potential going into the last quarter of this year and into 2022. So we're going to kind of break it down into a couple of different parts. I'll be presenting the first half of this webinar, and Keith will be coming in towards the back half. And we're going to start with just where we think and where we know we're at from the state of the channel in the industry as it pertains to print. Based on trends that we see internally and trends that we're seeing with our partners, as well as just communication that we've had with our dealer community and some of the feedback that we're getting out in the field. But we didn't want to just take that stuff for granted, and we put out 4 LinkedIn polls questions over the last 4 weeks, and we've harvested the data, and we're going to kind of collaborate and put that all together and wrap it up and take all of those findings and really present to you a strategy that we've put together and we're excited about to go out and re-engage the market and capture business, like I had mentioned, get you guys re-injuvenated and excited to win again in the market. And then we'll kind of turn it over into how we're going to, or how we plan to change our engagement with our dealer community, how we're kind of going to market now, and how we see different opportunities out there in the future in terms of our sales team and how they want to go to market. At that point, I'll be turning it over to Keith McCurley, who is going to kind of go into the nuts and bolts on how we have the ability to engage with you, how we've helped certain dealers that we've had success with, and what that looks like from the start to the finish for each and every opportunity that we've got. We'll be proposing or putting out there a couple of different success stories that we've had over the course of the last 18 months in order to just give you some examples that are real industry examples and how we've helped our partners grow. And then we'll finish up by just kind of going over where we think the next steps are in terms of our engagement with your organization, what we'd like to do to help you win. And then if there's any additional questions, we'll answer those at that point. And I know Tim will also be stopping us at a couple of points to answer any questions that might be out there. But with that, I'm going to jump right into the state of the channel. And the industry really, as it's very apparent to everybody right now, has been through a lot of ups and downs over the last 18 months. We've got quite a few struggles that we've seen industry-wide, and the first and foremost being that COVID has really accelerated the print decline that everybody's been talking about for 5 or 10 years. There's going to be less prints, people moving to cloud, just a less opportunity for us to go out and capture new business because of developing technology and everything else that goes into how we've changed our day-to-day work environments. Like I said, COVID's accelerated that a couple of years probably, and there's definitely a subset of prints that each and every one of us have seen in 2018, 2019, that's probably not going to come back at this point. We've also, because of that, there's the same amount of dealers fighting for less print. So there's been an increase in the competitive landscape. Everybody, ourselves included, our OEM partners, all of the OEMs, all of the aftermarket providers, the dealers, everybody is competing for fewer prints. And so therefore competition is getting steeper, margins are going to get compressed, and everybody's going to have to pull out a few more stops in order to win new business. Couple that with consolidation in the industry. There's a lot of smaller dealers or even mid-sized dealers that have been purchased as of late. And so you might have had a competitor in your backyard that you've, you're very familiar with, you know how to beat them, or, you might have agreements with them, whatever it may be. All of a sudden now that's a different entity, maybe somebody who goes to market a little bit different, and there's an opportunity and a risk in that consolidation. From there, we look at the dealer struggles. We talked about recovering lost revenue. There's definitely something that everybody is struggling with right now, and that's coupled with stunted sales growth. And a lot of that corresponds with the inability to effectively go out and prospect for new business because every person that's out there, every opportunity, every customer that's out there or prospect is getting back into the office. They're looking at their bottom line. They're looking at their efficiencies in their business. And they might not be really all that concerned or willing to look at bringing on new vendors or changing the way they're doing things right now. And so communication has been greatly decreased with prospects, and there's a lot of noise. There's so many more people contacting prospective customers. I know that every day I'm getting tons and tons of emails from software companies trying to get us to buy into their software platform. And it's starting to get noise. It's hard to differentiate between them. And so you just start to delete those emails. And I'm sure your sales reps are seeing that, which has caused a decrease in motivation. Sales reps are probably at this point looking at a decreased compensation because of decreased clicks. We all know that there's a problem with getting product right now in terms of new hardware. And so people are losing out on opportunities, or it's just delaying their compensation on those opportunities. And it's probably taking a hit on the motivation and morale of your sales team. And they've probably been doing something for 5, 10, 20 years that have gotten them highly compensated. And they've got to look at things differently and change the way they do things, which isn't always easy. And then the last and maybe the most difficult that we've heard is hiring and headcount. Everybody's having a hard time hiring, whether it be brand new salespeople or administrative personnel, customer service, technicians. Hiring and headcount is a massive issue, not just for people in our community, but outside of that as well, which hopefully we can capitalize on from a print standpoint. So all of those things are what we've seen as struggles from our dealer community, but we wanted to, like I said, make sure that we were tying that in with real feedback. And so we asked these questions, and I want to just quickly go over what we've seen from the feedback on the questions that we asked. And I'm going to blow through these pretty quick. The first question was, what is the primary way you plan to increase revenue in 2022? So we talk about dealer growth and how difficult that is. Best thing is we've got a big subset of our dealer community that is looking at different ways to bring on new growth. Adding new customers, great, 35%, more revenue from current base. Personally, my favorite answer was the least one, but 18% of you've said that. 24 new product categories. And then potentially the most alarming for me is 24%, a quarter of our dealers are anticipating business recovery, which I hope that means you're not sitting back and just waiting for business to come back. I'm pretty sure, and we've seen the trends, there's going to be a certain percentage of the clicks that just don't recover. And so just thinking that 2019, 2018 levels are going to come back is probably not the right position to take, but that could mean a little bit of different things for everybody. So all good stuff, adding new customers, new product categories, new revenue from current base, all great things to be looking for. The next thing is, how are you diversifying your revenue streams? We had a 3-way split here. A third of you are looking at bringing on or diversifying more in managed print on managed services and IT supplies, which is very, very corresponds very heavily with a lot of the feedback we've gotten from dealers out in the field. Moving to small A4 MFPs, also great answer, corresponds very well with what we're trying to do today. And then we had 33% who have made a decision that business as usual is probably the right way to go. I hope that business as usual, the 33% of you here and the 24% on anticipating business recovery, there's not overlap there, because that would be problematic probably, and we'll talk about that. One thing I did want to note, 0% of you say barcode systems and supplies. If Donna on our team is on the call, I'm sure she doesn't like to see that. She's heading up our barcode supplies revenue from that standpoint, that category for us. And we think it's a really great category. I would encourage you to talk to us and get our team engaged on that side of the business. But nobody said barcode systems and supplies. Next, and the last two are the ones that I want to focus in the most on, is what percentage of your business do you currently support A4 MPS? And 45% of our dealer community said that they're not supporting or focused on A4 at all right now. And then almost three quarters of you, it's less than 80%. So, kudos to the team, or the group of people that are over 80, that quarter of you that feel like you've got a good support structure in for your MPS capabilities or your MPS customers, but really want to focus in on the three quarters that haven't penetrated that side of the business, because there's lost opportunity there. And that personally, and I think everybody on the Clover side, we think that that's probably the best way for us to capture new revenue. And we'll go into that a little bit more. And last is, how confident are you that you're capturing all the print within the majority of your customer base? Meaning you've got a customer and they've got copiers, printers, they've got everything out there. How confident are you that you're capturing all of it? And 2/3 of our customers said that they're either confident or extremely confident, with another third saying we don't service A4 products, which once again, probably limiting yourself a little bit out in the field. And if it's not something you're familiar with or you haven't done in the past, that's where we want to help. And then we also want 2/3 of you that feel confident on winning new business and expanding into that category a little bit more. So with all that taken into consideration, we see that it's a kind of a split answer for across the board. We've got a lot of dealers that are kind of set on what they're doing in the past, and they want to continue to do that, sit back and wait for the market to recover. And then we've got a lot of dealers that are diversifying, getting aggressive, and trying to reinvent themselves and re-engage the market in a different way. And if you're not in the latter category, I'd encourage you to kind of take a look and take a look at how you've done things in the past. And this is the time to kind of reinvent and train your sales team and get aggressive in the market again. And that's where we come in. We really want to help our dealer community go to market with a new strategy. And that's this make it happen strategy. We want to help you guys engage and win new business, both within new customers and current customers. Now, the new customers acquisition is probably at this point a little bit more difficult. We talked about a minute ago where we've got people getting back in and they're getting flooded with inquiries and flooded with information from a lot of different places. A lot of people are looking at their bottom line. And like I said, they don't want to think about bringing on new vendors. If anything, vendor consolidation has been a big hot button for a lot of customers, of end users, our customers. And there's a way for us to capitalize on that. But when you're bringing on a net new customer, trying to come in as a new vendor is difficult. So it's extremely important for you to take some time to differentiate yourself from your competition, really push some cost savings, push what's best for the dealer, not what's best, or not best for the dealer, best for the end user, not what's best for your dealership, and have more engaging conversations on how to change up what you've consistently done in the past when you're proposing net new business. And that Keith is going to go into a couple of examples here in a minute on how we've done that to help our dealers win net new business. The thing I'd also tell you to capitalize on is a reduced headcount. If you think about it, there's a lot of end users out there that have had, 25 copiers or whatever it may be, or 10 copiers and 25 desktops. And if they've got to reduce headcount, or half of their staff is not working in the office anymore, their print environment is going to change. Their printing habits are going to change. And for you to come in and once again, differentiate yourself against the incumbent and say, listen, you don't need this, or we can help you with this, you're going to create a long-lasting partnership. So that's for net new. But where I'm most excited and passionate about is our current customers that you have an existing relationship with. You have current communication with them. You're not worried about prospecting. You're not spending the money on the time on going out and trying to capture and get their mind share and get them paying attention to you. Current customers is where I think all of us can expand and get more aggressive. I think there's a lot of dealers out there, and a lot of you that are on here have a data collection agent that's out there, and you're currently monitoring a print environment or multiple print environments for your customers that have machines that you're not capitalizing on. That's lost revenue. And not only is that lost revenue, that's a risk because there's somebody else in that environment that is, whether it be MPS or transactional, selling to that customer that you guys have passed up in the past. And eventually, if that dealer gets smart or that competitor gets smart, they're going to wait until your copier contract's up and they're going to come in and say, listen, Mr. End User, why are you splitting up your spend? Let's consolidate down and I can do everything they can do. And you can just bring all of your spend into one dealer. We want to help you guys go out and be the dealer that forces that conversation. You guys maximize spend, strengthen your customer relationships, and build a wall around your business. So you're not going to have as much loss in business in the future, and you're going to realize net new revenue. There's a lot of sales reps out there that have been uncomfortable with doing this, and you might not be currently set up to do this. And we want to help you with that. We want to get your sales team excited about it, and we'll go over how we'll do that at the end of the presentation. But just know that Clover has all of the tools to help you jump into something that you're a little bit uncomfortable with or might be uncomfortable with to capitalize on that current customer base. And that's where I'd encourage all of you that are on this call today to focus in on, because those are the customers, and that's the cheapest way to bring on net new business is within current customers. And so how does that look, and why Clover, why today? Engagement with us right now has not right now, traditionally in the history of working with Clover, our sales reps have typically worked with your operations team, your purchasing procurement team, and we've come in and we've said, hey, Mr. Dealer, you're buying your aftermarket supplies from one of our competitors. We'd like for you to turn that business over to us. That's great. We've won a lot of business doing that, but unfortunately, and fortunately for us, that business has shrunk over time. There's not as many aftermarket providers out there, and the ones that are out there traditionally are sourcing product from overseas, and it's a race to the bottom. And so it's all of us out there trying to fight for a smaller piece of the pie, and it's a race to lower profit margins, and it's just not a sustainable or profitable or good way to go to market. So we're trying to re-engage our dealers in going out and working not with procurement and operations. We still want to focus on those guys and help them out, but we want to start engaging you from a sales team standpoint. We'd love to have conversations with your sales leaderships, sales team, and go to market side by side as a partner into your accounts and customers and help you win new business. The dealers that are winning with us and growing with us have allowed us to work with them. And they're the ones that are bringing deals to us, working with mostly Keith over here because he's the one who understands the numbers, and getting new business won and bringing on net new opportunities. And so that's what our sales team is going to start asking from our dealer community. And that's what we want to start working with. And so just keep that in mind as we go through. We want the opportunity to start working with you, expanding into your organization and working with people we haven't worked in the past, because we are now going to market with a sales-centric solution and a sales-centric approach. And the last thing before I turn it over to Keith that I'll mention is the reason this is beneficial to all of our dealer partners is Clover's brand agnostic. We don't care if you're selling HP, Lexmark, Dell, whatever it may be. We want to help you across the board. So it's a selfish way to go to market because we want to make money, but we don't care what you sell. We're not going to try to push something on a customer of yours that doesn't make sense. We're not going to hold you to minimums. We're not going to hold you to, we're not going to make you report or anything like that. It's all based on, we want your business to grow. We want you guys to be profitable and successful, because that's how we're going to be profitable and successful in the future. So that's how our engagement strategy is going to work. And I'm going to turn it over to Keith to kind of go through how that engagement process works, how we want to help you guys from start to finish, and what it looks like. And he's also going to be going over some different examples of things that we've done in the past. But before, Tim, are there any questions before we transition?
I was going to say, before we pass it over to Keith, there is one question that came in shortly after you spoke about rep motivation, I believe. The question is, my reps are highly compensated to sell hardware. How do I get them to care about selling MPS?
That's a good question. We get this a lot, and it's going to vary from dealer to dealer. A lot of times, what we'll come in and look at is how they're currently compensated, and mimic that on the supply side. We can help you guys put together those packages and help you guys put something together that's beneficial and gets the reps excited. But a lot of times, it's paying up front for contracts. And allowing the rep to get paid in one fell swoop rather than break it down monthly on a supply revenue standpoint. And you want reps always like to get that big check. So front loading it and getting them excited about getting that check is probably the best way. But it all comes down to the individual dealership and the individual sales team. And so at the end, we'll talk about kind of some of the ways we want to engage you guys. And a lot of that comes back down to understanding the way your sales team is currently compensated and adding on some value to that compensation program without muddying the waters and make it easy. So we will work with you on ways to do that. So I hope that answers the question, but it all comes down to the individual dealer in a lot of situations.
Appreciate it. Thank you, AJ. All right, Keith, the floor is yours.
Thanks, guys. We're going to go through our support and how we kind of approach some of the deals with our dealers as looking at it from a life cycle perspective. So we'll look at the front end support that we offer and how we can help you win the deal. That's the most important part. And then once we get past that, we can also offer support with implementation and additional support for the ongoing management and maintenance of the program. And I'm going to kind of review some success stories as we go through this. When I'm reviewing those success stories, I'm not going to mention the dealer name, the OEM name, or the end user name. So it may come across a little bit generic, but I'll try to get into the details on what type of support we offered that helped on that program. Just not going to name the accounts themselves. So on the front end, if you work with us and you're sharing your funnel with us and we're working on opportunities together, we have the time. And by that, I mean, occasionally, sometimes our dealers will throw up an opportunity to us that's, it's already 80% gone in terms of they found out late, or we just didn't really have a lot of time to help change the deal or affect the proposal. But here's a list of some of the things we offer. One is just looking at the toner costs, right? So when we look at the models, we'll put it out on a spreadsheet. Here are the highest yield, lowest cost cartridges we have for these models. And then we'll show that on a cost per page basis. And then you can look at it and say which models are the most efficient, which models are going to be driving the cost down, and work on the proposal from there. From there, you look at a device review. There's high cost models, there's low cost models, there's old, there's unsupported. Look at utilization. We will work with you guys on any sort of right sizing that needs to happen, or dropping in a few printers here and there if that's the way the deal is going to work. We've got the ability to get OEM printers. We've got the ability to get refurbished printers. And that step of the process just helps you position yourself for a more aggressive or higher margin proposal. And then if you need help on the service side, we don't have our own employees out there running around doing service, but we can introduce you to several of our partners who perform service on site. And we have 3 companies that we work with and 3 companies that we can introduce you guys to help manage the service if you need service outside your current area. And then we help you with the sales process in terms of articulating sustainability impact and marketing that. Our program is more sustainable than the OEM program, and we can help you demonstrate that in your proposal. And we'll talk about a little bit later how we can come back with reporting on recycling and cartridges collected to help you back that up and review that in your quarterly reviews. And then the last piece is, depending on the models, if you're taking product out and putting new printers in, depending on the model, we might be able to offer you some money for some of those used printers, because we sell a lot of refurbished printers, and that can be baked into your proposal. So we take a look at that and take a look at what's coming out of the environment as well. So one of the success stories we want to kind of highlight here is a regional grocery chain. And we worked with the dealer on the proposal process. It was a long sales cycle. It was in the middle of COVID, and probably 7 or 8 months to get the deal closed. They first put out an RFP, probably had 6 or 7 companies bidding on it. Most of those dropped out immediately when they saw the requirements. This customer knew exactly what they wanted, and it was weighted towards them. The table was tilted towards them in terms of not having any risk and the dealer taking all the risk. We kind of hung in there and worked with them, and came up with some ideas on how we could structure the proposal that got closer to what they want. And we ended up being awarded the business because we got closer to what they wanted to do. We didn't stick to a more traditional method of pricing and you know, how the deal was structured. So that's 175 grocery stores, 250 fuel stations. And we're right now in the middle of implementing in terms of rolling it out and shipping the printers, and also, you know, setting it up on our DCA, setting up the alerts. There are printers that were positioned, you know, 45 days ago that are starting to have calls for toner, and we're doing the fulfillment of the toner out of our distribution center in partnership with that dealer. It's a 5-year contract, so it's 5 years of revenue for the dealer and 5 years of revenue for us. And we got creative on the proposal was the key to this, and it's not structured like any other deal out there that I've run into. But we were able to get terms that gave us adequate protection and also give the end user what they were looking for. So the next phase is implementation. So one of the things we've done is to start staging and configuring. So what does that mean? So if you're going to have a tech meet that printer, typically in an install operation, especially if you're using third-party techs, they're going to be able to get it set up. They're going to make sure the first page comes out, and they may be able to enter an IP address, but they're not going to do a lot of, you know, setup type things. They're going to expect the IT department to come in and do that. Well, if we get the specs, we can do some of that in our distribution center before we ship the printer. So we've got a deal, and we'll talk about the success story in a minute, but we're staging and configuring those devices in advance. And when they deliver, there's a lot less for the organization to do once those devices are plugged in. So that's a piece of the value proposition that we can offer. We've got a guy that works for us, and we do this out of our Ottawa, Illinois facility. And he's managed drone fleets internally for many, many years, including our print labs with hundreds of printers in them. So he knows what he's doing in this regard. And we've got a space set up where he can do that configuration work before we ship the printers. Other things we can do in implementation is the initial setup. I mean, as you're rolling out printers, you have to get them on the contract. You have to register warranties. You got to load in asset IDs. You've got asset tags when you're deploying. We've got the ability to help with all of that. Asset tags is part of the initial configuration. We can go ahead and get them on the printer before we ship it. And then we've got a program called ASM, or Auto Supplies Management, which we can set up. It pulls in data from the DCA, and it creates alerts for the dealer. Lets them know when it's time for a toner for a printer or a drum or whatever that supply item is. It just aids greatly with the fulfillment. And we can also turn that into an auto fulfillment process if the dealer so chooses, and they'll automatically ship out from our distribution center. So the success story around this is an airline carrier, and the unique issues you run into if you're trying to deliver to an airport is, first of all, it's a very, very tight window. You know, it's a national contract. We're shipping printers all over the country, 4 or 5 units per airport. And you don't just drop off printers at a dock at an airport and leave them there. They've got tight security. Somebody has to be there waiting for them. There could be more than one location to deliver to at the airport. So getting that done and also offering the configuration on the front end just made that process a little bit better for the airline, who had some IT people at each airport as we were shipping those printers. So they didn't have to do as much work once the printers were plugged in. We were able to help get them there within a window. And that's, it sounds simple, but sometimes it's hard to do when you're dealing with standard freight rates for LTL carriers right now. They're not promising delivery dates and times, but we work with our carriers, and we have a special handling guy on our transportation team who can work with the carriers to get it inside a tighter window if we need that. So that's a service that we offer. We're coordinating with this dealer with a partner of ours who took over a lot of our cost per page duties for MPS. We're no longer wholesaling pages and completely managing the deals. We worked with a dealer of ours to set that program up, and they're managing that function. So the dealer that we're working with on this deal is not doing the, tracking the moves, adds, deletes, changes. They're just getting an invoice from our partner, and then they're sending an invoice to the customer. And then this is a 3-year contract. So it's a combination of new hardware, some OEM toner, and some Clover toner. And then ongoing management. The biggest piece here is monitoring and auto fulfillment of supplies. We've got 4 DCAs that we have contracts with and work with, and you can, work if you want to bring your monitoring onto our platform. We'll help you manage that. And we also have the ASM product that plugs into the DCA. It's also integrated to our system, and it's also got an eAutomate integration. So if you wanted to have us drop an order inside your system, it'll do that. That order isn't complete. You'll have to do a couple of things to it, because all the information you need on an order isn't necessarily residing inside our ASM, like, maybe the contract number or something like that. That's in it. It's in eAutomate. You're going to have to attach it when you get the order, but it gets the order started and ready to push into a PO processor. So it saves you a lot of time in analysis in, whatever your current process is to decide whether or not to ship that toner. It can take about 70 or 80% of that work away from you. We also fulfill the parts for the programs. We provide full cost per page management of the A4 devices. And again, that's via a partner. But if you're a dealer that's heavily A3, you haven't put a lot of, thought into A4, and you want to start going after that business, you can work with us. As AJ said, there's an opportunity for us to engage with your sales team, and you guys can get those A4 devices on contract and use our partner to manage it day to day. So it's not really distracting you from what you want to have your guys working on. And then we have the collection options and the data support our proposal, the initial proposal, or what we're saying is our sustainability profile. So, we have a variety of ways that we can capture those empties, and it's zero waste to landfill, and there's no one else in the market, offering that right now. Without it, you would be looking at, mixed OEM environment and trying to get different cartridges back to different companies. So that's what we offer on an ongoing management process. Success story. One of our customers came to us in the end of July, in a large East Coast school district, had a board meeting and decided they wanted to put a printer in each classroom. And it was for COVID reasons, not to have people leave the classroom or go someplace else to print or congregate somewhere. They wanted a printer in each classroom, and they wanted them installed by August 26th, or whatever the date was, I think. So here you're looking at 1,500 printers, and our dealer went to their primary OEM manufacturer, and that company couldn't even offer an ETA, right? And they came to us and said, can you guys help us out? We went to one of our OEM relationships and threw the opportunity at them, and they took advantage of it. They had the stock, and we were able to source 1,500 printers, low end, but they were laser MFPs and 1,500 printers and have them staged in our distribution center. And we shipped 47 shipments out before that deadline. They actually called us a couple of days before the deadline and said, stop, we got too many to install right now, and started it back up. The last few shipments went in September, but that was only because they needed us to stop and let them catch up. But that's a success story of us just adding value in a tight printer market and supply chain issues. You never know. Give us a call if you have an opportunity and you don't think you can wait for whatever ETA you've been quoted. We might be able to help you in that case. Again, we staged them in Farmingdale and we carved them up into individual shipments for each school, and then had those deliveries made by common carrier with liftgate. Stocking toner and drums for support for this, so they're coming back to us for the supplies, and it's a 3-year contract. So that's just 3 success stories, how we work with our customers. And I want to just finish by saying the next 3 won't look like these 3. We want to be creative. What is the customer looking for? If they know what they want, we'll try to deliver it that way. We can also be consultative if they're not sure what they're looking for and make recommendations. So I'm not saying we don't do that, but it's a strange market. New ideas are being thrown around. Customers are going to come with requests that they've never come with before. Give us a call. We'll work with you and we'll be creative and we'll come up with a solution that makes everybody happy.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Keith, because that, in terms of next steps, I'd mentioned a little bit ago that what our sales team is trying to do or wants to do at this point is engage with your sales team and your sales leadership, and that all of those opportunities that we helped the dealers with, and I know there's more than 3. Keith and I were talking prior to this. There's a lot of opportunities that we've helped our dealers win, and we've won a lot of business this year, and it all comes down to us working with the sales teams. And so I encourage you guys to, if we're not currently working with your sales organization, to let us get engaged, let us work with those individuals and get on the front end of deals. Keith had mentioned it. A lot of what we need to do and a lot of the success comes from whenever we can get involved early, and that all comes back to us partnering with your team. And so all of the reps that call on the dealers that are on this call are going to be asked to reach out here in the next few days. So you'll probably be getting a call here in the next couple of days. And what we want to do is just sit down with you and uncover understand just what you're struggling with, where the roadblocks are right now, what's keeping you from growing and hitting your goals this year, and where you see the risk and opportunity for next year. How your sales team structured, so on and so forth. And from there, we'll come back with a sales engagement program that's tailored for your organization. We want to do rep trainings. We could throw spiff programs at your reps to get them excited about working with us. And it just depends on your comfort level with getting us engaged and how hands-on or hands-off you want us to be. And then from there, we want to just keep in contact on a regular basis in order to make sure we're executing and accomplishing what we set out to do. Once again, we want to change our engagement with our dealers. We want to help you guys win new business. And we've talked about it a lot through the pandemic, but there's a really nice opportunity for all of us right now with everything up in the air to go out and win net new business. And we want to be your growth partner there. And, we will do anything it takes to make sure that you guys are successful in the market. So with that, I encourage you to, take the reps call here in the next couple of days and start the program and let us help you guys win and grow. And Tim, before we sign off, it looks like we've got some questions that have come in. If you want to ask those.
Thank you, AJ. I think there are 2 that came in during Keith's content, so I'll direct those towards you, Keith. The first of which is, do you work with dealers that do flat rate MPS programs, and what are your thoughts on that program?
Yeah, we do work with dealers that are flat rate. I mean, with our strategy, it really doesn't matter to us how they bill, but that program is popular and it's got some significant benefits. Pre-COVID, it made sense because page counts were declining 1-2% a year, and there was really no risk or less risk than there would have been a long time ago. Right now, you would have to be careful if you were going to do a flat rate because people are coming back to the office. You'd have to set the right kind of volume measure in your mind based on what the customer's doing and what their plans are. But if you give them a flat rate based on 200,000 pages a month and they bring everybody back to the office in January and it's 500,000 pages a month, you're going to need the ability to change that rate based on people coming back. But it's a great program.
Thank you, Keith. The next one is, what can we do if we don't service hardware that's currently in the field? Would that keep us out of opportunities such as ones that you reviewed?
So our first recommendation is to offer our list of printers and say, let's replace these with printers that we do support, right? Or in the dealer collectively. When I say we, I mean us and the dealer collectively, we can provide support for it. So, and especially if it's a proposal that's going to result in a multi-year contract, we can creatively work that into the deal and get those printers out that we can't support and make that part of the program.
Thank you, Keith. And then the last question I'll propose to you is kind of a combo of a few questions we've gotten regarding printers. Are there any specific printer manufacturers that we work with? Are they new or used printers in terms of the OEM, the ones that we work with? And is there still that, I guess, the shortage of the smaller footprint printers in the marketplace right now?
Yeah, I would say there's still a shortage. Our printer lineup is HP refurb. So we're more refurb on the HP lineup, and we can work with Xerox and Lexmark as well on new printers, OEM printers, but they're all backed up right now, and it's very tight. And there's everybody's probably heard stories of some of what's going on out there, but one of the OEMs is offering dirt cheap extended warranties just to keep their customers in the same printer for another 6, 7, 8 months, as an example. So we've seen a pickup in August and September in our parts business just because repair is the only option sometimes. And I kind of look at a refurbished printer as a form of repair. If a lot of the dealers use our line because they've already won the contract. They're managing a fleet, and if they go out and hit the same printer twice in the same month, they say, let's get rid of it. Let's go ahead and replace it. And that's where we come in sometimes. But today, with the scarcity of OEM printers, we're having people come to us for an entire fleet of refurbished printers, and that's a legitimate option right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith. And that's the extent of the questions that we've got so far. So with that, I will just like to once again thank Keith and AJ for coordinating this time today. And on behalf of myself and Clover, thank all of our attendees for spending some time with us. We hope you enjoyed it. Any questions that are popping in late in the Q&A will be followed up on individually. And as a reminder, the Clover marketing team will make this recording, the recording of this presentation, available for anyone who joined late, left early, or was unable to attend. Once again, thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.